Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, family? Joyous Rising, good morning. Living Life says she can't hear me. Hopefully, you guys can hear me now. Can you hear me? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me, family. On yes, now you can. Okay, I apologize for that. Okay, so happy Moon Day, happy Monday, joyous rising, great rising, glorious rising, family, rich rising, wealthy rising to the soul family. Check in and let us know where you're hailing from. Now, I hope you were able to join the podcast on yesterday. That's what I was saying when I was muted. Yesterday was Sunday, but we talked about the doors of Jubilee opening and what that means for us. Today, we're going to talk about how you can get in on the greatest wealth transfer in history. So let me just go on to talk to you about what that means, and then I'll tell you how you can get in on the wealth transfer. I won't be able to stay on long because I have a meeting at exactly 10:30. So Rich Rising, it is a Monday, December the 30th, 2024, and the time is 9:55 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So family, it's good to see everybody. We're talking about the greatest wealth transfer in history that we are about to experience. As a matter of fact, some people are already planning for it right now. And so my task here today is to tell you how you can get in on this wealth transfer. Before I do, I want to say thank you to all of you all who's been joining my podcast over the years and all throughout December, especially because we're preparing to execute our humanitarian projects as we're all about to become wealthy, especially those of us a part of this podcast and that's a part of our soul family, excuse me. So I also want to thank you all for your time, your energy, your messages, the Cash App blessings that you all have given me. Even like through the night, you guys were still sending me gifts and offerings and telling me how much you appreciate the information that I provide. So I just want to say thank you so much. Now, I don't know how many of you all know this or realize this, but many of the people who were CEOs of banks, CEOs of major corporations, CEOs and advisors of different agencies, governmental agencies, a lot of them have already been arrested. Some of you have followed me and others who have reported on those arrests that have not made mainstream media news, but you do know about info that I think is info@resignation.com. I'll have to find that website for you that shows you all of the forced resignations, all of the arrests, and all of the forced retirements. So we'll find that link for you and we'll put it in the chat for you. But through Executive Order 138-18, which President Trump had executed before he left office the first time around 2018, 2019, that executive order actually froze the assets of all participants who were a participant in crimes against humanity. So anybody who participated in ritualistic abuse of children, any type of crimes against humanity, treasonous crimes, all of these people, according to Executive Order 138-18, were arrested and sent through military tribunals, but also had their assets frozen. So with those frozen assets, people have been asking what's going to happen with those assets now that they're seized. Those assets will be injected back into the global economy. That's not the only way we will have wealth to come into our economy, but many of you know about NESARA and JASARA, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, and the global version of that, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. And those were acts that were signed into law in the year 2000 under President Bill Clinton. Now, he didn't do it of his own volition. He didn't want to sign that into law, but he was forced to sign this into law at gunpoint by the military. The military actually forced him to sign this into law because the military has been assembled to take down these elite bloodline families that had enslaved humanity. So that announcement was supposed to come from the Pentagon in 2001 on 9/11. However, these people who have been in power took all the gold out of the World Trade Towers, out of the World Trade Center or the towers, the gold that was supposed to be put forward to pay off debt. And they told certain people not to show up to work, and then they imploded the towers. That happened on 9/11, which was supposed to be the great announcement of a debt jubilee also known as Nasara Jisara, and that announcement was supposed to come from the Pentagon. After they destroyed the towers, they then sent some type of plane. Some people say it was a CGI, computer generated imagery. Some people say it was an implosion. We don't know, but they sent some type of device into the Pentagon, and there was no announcement of our freedom or liberation or debt jubilee. So that announcement, being Nasara Jisara, actually, as many of you know, came from not only the military forcing Clinton to sign it into law, but the background of that law, Nasara Jisara, was when the farmers took the United States Incorporated, these bloodline families that faked and pretend like they were the government. They had incorporated themselves in Delaware in 1871. The farmers in America took the United States Incorporated to courts, the highest courts, and they took their central banking system leaders, the CEOs, to court. And the courts found that the banks, the central banking system, had participated in nefarious banking practices that were unconstitutional, forcing farmers to do certain things. Thank you so much for the Cash App blessing. God bless you. To do certain things in order to get bank loans, like sow poisonous seeds, such as Monsanto seeds, feed the cattle things that were not native or was not natural for their diet, like making cows eat corn, and just doing certain things, feeding them and injecting them with hormones and other poisonous agents that will poison us. So in order to get these banking loans, these are the things that the farmers were forced to do. And the farmers were forced to take out loans with high interest rates. Well, exacting usury or interest upon we the people is unconstitutional, according to our republic and our constitution for our republic. So the courts decided that the farmers were correct. And unfortunately, many farmers lost their lives fighting for us. The farmers, we owe the farmers a debt of gratitude because they fought the good fight. The courts determined that not only were the farmers mistreated by the banking system and by their practices, but so have we the people, not only in America, but all across the globe. Because as you recall, the United States Incorporated was not just based in America. They may have had a headquarters based in Washington, D.C., but they had headquarters and offices, and their tentacles stretched all across the globe. The Central Bank of the United States Incorporated is the centralized banking system that came up with the fiat dollar and the debt-based financial system and the SWIFT system that enslaved us. They did so many things by making us take out loans, putting us in debt, having a high interest rates on the loans we took out. And all of this was unconstitutional because, as many of you already know, when we were born, we had a birth certificate. And this was relatively new. It used to be a time when your birth was recorded in the Bible. Your birth, your death, baptisms, land deeds, all that was recorded in the family Bible. But throughout a process of change by the deep state, their sinister plot, all of those methodologies of recording things had changed or been modified to now, when you're born, your mother is classified as an agent. We were agents unbeknownst to us, and we signed over our children to the deep state when we signed a birth certificate. Then the birth certificate was securitized, turned into a bond, and traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and all that money and wealth that was attached to the birth certificate went into a trust. So each of us have a lot of money. All of us are actually multimillionaires and billionaires. That money was attached to our trust. So through out regulations and legislation being passed, it was determined that anytime we took out a loan or we were paying rent or got a loan for, let's see, mortgages, car loans, school loans, or all of that or debt should have been offset by your trust or with your trust. But instead of offsetting the debt with our trust and allowing us to have access to those, such as your TDA account and the trust accounts attached to your birth certificate bond, what these nefarious bankers did was they made us sign a loan application, and the signature was actually giving them power of attorney over our trust so that they would then take money out of our trust whenever you apply for a loan, pay themselves off with the trust and then made us pay them again with high interest rates. So they were paying themselves 2 or 3 times. Even when you showed up in court, the reason why they would do that is because they were accessing your trust. So now, though, with the taking down of the deep state by the Grand Army of the Republic, or the white hats of the military and the white knights of Nasara, now all of those things are changing. So the United States Incorporated is bankrupt and defunct. The United States Incorporated central banking system is also bankrupt, insolvent, and defunct. And now the Republic has come up and back online, and we've seen lots of evidence of that. I've gone over that many times on various broadcasts. But we're talking today about how you can take advantage of the greatest wealth transfer in history. Now that many of those banking CEOs and corporate entities that have lost power, have been arrested or been taken down or forced to resign, now that all of that has happened, their assets have been frozen. At the same time, we see different entities such as the Shanghai Corporation, those Asian countries, and the BRICS unions, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and all of those countries that joined BRICS, now known as BRICS Plus, all of them have coalesced or staged a coup d'etat against the central banking system that's attached to the United States Incorporated. The way they coalesced against the United States Incorporated and their central banking system is by dropping the dollar for trade. Okay, stay with me, family. I know I'm going fast, but they all decided not to use the United States dollar for trade. And that's huge. That will completely devalue the United States dollar and decimate it and potentially destroy the dollar system, the fiat-based system. And everything attached to the dollar may collapse, like the housing market, the automobile industry, bonds, anything attached to the dollar may indeed and most likely will collapse. We are at the precipice of a total economic collapse as far as the economy as we know it. This has happened before. It happens at the end of every empire. The people in power spend as much money as they can, rack up the debt, print up as much fiat as they can, acquire assets for themselves, and then they destroy that system and then return to a sound monetary system, such as the go back system. It's called the crack up boom. You print as much money as you can, you spend it up, you rack up the credit, rack up the debt, buy yourselves assets, the people in power, and then you crash the system because it's a system that's unsustainable. And then you go to a go back system, but you will have made yourself rich and wealthy in the meantime. Well, this is what the elites have done historically, many, many times. Again, look it up, crack up boom. We don't have time to actually bring up the article today, but I've done it many times. What made the United States dollar the world reserve currency was our agreement with Saudi Arabia that we will protect the Saudi empire in exchange for their oil, and we will force all nations to to get oil from Saudi Arabia using the United States dollar. And if those nations didn't do that, then we would sanction those nations with either economic sanctions and say nobody can do trade with those nations, or we would just decimate their economy through war. Well, again, the rich people, the elite people who didn't care about that would say, okay, well, go ahead and put sanctions on those countries. Go ahead and do war over there, because we know that the elites were funding both sides of the war. And then when those countries' currencies were decimated through war and sanctions, the rich people, the bankers, the CEOs, the so-called elite politicians, even some celebrities would buy those currencies while they had devalued, waited for the American government, the United States Incorporated, to go back in those countries after war, bring back the economy, rebuild the infrastructure, and then their currencies would go up in value. So the people who had bought the currencies that had devalued through war and sanctions would then go to the bank and say, oh, wow, the currencies, those countries' currencies have been reinstated back to their value before war and before sanctions. So now there was a new exchange rate on those currencies. They had bought them when they had been devalued. Now that the currencies were revalued, They would go to the bank and get a higher exchange rate on those currencies, and people became millionaires overnight. The reason why I'm telling you all this, because it's all based on our agreement with Saudi Arabia. Well, the agreement between the United States and Incorporated and Saudi Arabia was not renewed this year. It ended in June of 2024 and it was not renewed. Why? Because behind the scenes, 209 nations had agreed, unbeknownst to most of the people, to stop trading with the US dollar and use their own local currencies backed by precious metals and the resources of those countries for trade. And they decided not to necessarily get oil from Saudi Arabia. Now they have their own oil. Now they're establishing themselves as sovereign. Now they can look for other areas and places to get oil. So they didn't have to participate in this agreement between Saudi Arabia and the United States Incorporated. But Saudi Arabia was smart. They said, oh, we have lots of oil. We're not trying to make the world mad now that the world stopped trading with the United States dollar. We'll just join BRICS too. So now Saudi Arabia is a part of BRICS, and almost all exporting nations are a part of the BRICS union, and they have all agreed to stop trading with the United States dollar. You also have the Shanghai Corporation, those Asian conglomerate of nations that have done the same thing. Whether they join BRICS or not, they've stopped trading with the dollar. So now all of these nations have established their sovereignty by using their own local currencies. Vladimir Putin was very, very smart because he set all of this off. He was the catalyst of all of this happening by going to Ukraine, remember the Ukraine war, and exposing all of the nefarious activities of deep state members, including Biden. And he's a mastermind because he also was trying to bring the Ukraine back under his auspices or his umbrella. So when he went to Ukraine and exposed what was going on in the deep underground military bases and all what was happening with money laundering, things happening to children, it was a cesspool for the elite of nefarious activities. Vladimir Putin exposed that. Some of that information went to James Comer, who is the chair of the House Oversight Committee. They gathered evidence against Biden and his crime family and the deep state. That was happening. At the same time, you have the Brunson brothers exposing how Biden, Harris, Nancy Pelosi, and 385 members of Congress had participated in election fraud, right, in 2020 and 2022. So that Brunson brother case was being heard by the Supreme Court. All of this happening at the same time, family, which will lead to the decimation and destruction of the United States central banking system and the US dollar, and everything that is attached to the dollar would collapse. So Project Sandman, again, was a secret agreement between 209 nations to, when triggered, stop trading with the United States dollar and use their own local currencies for trade. They did that by creating or expanding the BRICS coalition and by encouraging the Shanghai Corporation to do the same thing as Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and all those nations that joined them by dropping the United States dollar for trade. That ended financial and economic hegemony for the United States Incorporated. Because again, what made the dollar the world reserve currency was our agreement with Saudi Arabia to protect their Saudi empire in exchange for their oil. And we would force all nations to get oil from Saudi Arabia, and they must use the United States dollar. Well, all those agreements now have collapsed. The agreement ended. It was not renewed. BRICS became a stronger force. They added more nations. The Shanghai Corporation also did the same thing. Then you had African nations to join BRICS, and not only join BRICS, but to kick out the colonists. For example, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger kicked out the French. When they kicked out the French, military from their land, now the French could not protect their things that they had going on, their interest in those African nations, because they couldn't force the French children to exploit the resources so that France could do well economically. But so now you had those three African nations, and many of them expelled colonists. They expelled the French. They created their own alliance, their own military, and they became a force to be reckoned with. And now they're trading with their own local currencies. Well, when things like that happen, it has a domino effect. Kicking out the French from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger was something that was monumental because now France's economy can no longer depend upon the resources in Africa, in those French areas or nations that they were ruling and controlling and had colonized. So now the French country, France's country started to struggle economically. So the prime minister of finances was ousted in France because the people in power were like, now we're suffering because they kicked us out of Africa. No longer can we suck on the breasts of the African people. No longer can we enslave the children and force them to mine for us. And now we can't get the resources. So they did a vote of confidence and got rid of the whole finance administration in France. And now Macron, who is the president of France, has been forced to step down. Whether or not he stepped down officially yet, I don't know, but they are putting pressure on Macron to step down. And he stood up and said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not supposed to go anywhere until 2027 until my term is up. But he will be pressured to step down because in all of the countries around the world, every nefarious person that was in power that was attached to United States Incorporated, which is the neo or expanded version of the Roman Empire, they have to be destroyed, decimated, and taken down. Now, while all of this is happening behind the scenes, you have people that are preparing for NESARA and GESARA to go online, the National Economic Security Reformation Act and the global version of that. We see different factions or different principles of NESARA and GESARA actually going into effect. When we saw some countries pay out their farmers, when we saw Guyana and South America pay out or announce that they're going to pay out every Guyanan national $100,000 and put it into their account. The only thing they had to do was prove that they are a national and they had to be present. So you can be abroad as a Guyanan national, but in order to receive your benefit, you have to be in the country in South America. That will happen all across the world. If you want me to, we could do a whole nother podcast. I've been doing this a podcast on NESARA since 2017, but we can do it so that everybody can be caught up on what those principles are. But we're living in a new era where those benefits of NESARA are actually happening right before our eyes. We already talked about, speaking of the golden era, how President Trump said the golden age for America starts now. And yesterday he said, we are in the golden age of America. Well, this is the golden age for the world, family. And there's an opportunity for each and every one of you, while the dollar is being decimated, while all these bubbles that had expanded pop, there's an opportunity for each and every one of you who are able and who know how to prepare to become wealthy. Some people will receive their benefits attached to the birth certificate bonds. Everybody will. And they will become wealthy. They will have enough money to take care of themselves and their posterity. But if you want to go beyond that, beyond the NESARA benefits, let's look at what happened in 1929 and 1930 during the Great Depression. Many people became wealthy during the Great Depression. I'm bringing this up because we're seeing the signs of those times where the dollar is losing value. And when the dollar loses value, everything that's attached to it will collapse. The bonds, the bond market, the housing market, automobile market, everything attached to the United States dollar, the fiat system, the central banking system, and their old nefarious ways of handling business will collapse. So what happened was Jim Rickards said that once you see the dollar devalue, and once you see nations deciding to stop trading with the United States dollar, everything attached to the dollar will collapse. But he also said we will experience something called an ICE 9 scenario, meaning everything could freeze. ATM cards could stop working. Everything could freeze because the markets, are now in trouble. People don't know how to act. People become frantic or panicking. But I'm telling you that there are opportunities during financial and economic collapses. So what we saw in the late 1920s, 1930s is a Great Depression. but we saw people become wealthy. How? By purchasing devalued assets such as real estate. Now let's start with real estate. When Evergrande, the largest real estate company that's owned by China, filed for bankruptcy here in America, they were also forced to liquidate their assets. What you're going to witness now is all that land, all that farmland, all that property that the CCP or the Chinese Communist Party, many of whom were a part of Evergrande, all of that land that was purchased now and those houses will now be dumped back onto the market, family. That's one thing that will happen. So think about this. If you're into real estate, when the assets are devalued, you can then go back and buy real estate at a lower price. You might not have the money yet, just stay with me. Another way, so not only has Evergrande filed bankrupt, but a lot of people don't know that BlackRock is in trouble. BlackRock, Blackstone, and many of these companies that's attached to the United States Incorporated or their elite buddies, so-called elite buddies, a lot of those companies bought up houses during COVID. They bought up apartment complexes. All of the assets that we used to own, many of us lost those through COVID, through foreclosures, and even since 2008, 2009, we lost a lot of our property. These big conglomerate agencies, corporations bought up our land, our properties, our buildings, our apartment complexes, or whatever you used to own cheaply. Then they put up the rent prices so high that people couldn't afford to live. Okay. They made the mortgages, so unobtainable that a lot of people couldn't even get a mortgage. So they had to sell whatever assets they had in order to rent from Blackstone and even these mom and pop owned apartment complexes that were now bought up by these big companies. Zillow even bought up some of these companies. Well, what's happening now is a lot of people can no longer afford it. Not only has BlackRock, Blackstone, and some of these CEOs been arrested or they're in trouble because their assets are frozen because they participated in crimes against humanity, but people cannot afford to rent from them because an apartment that used to cost $650 is now $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 a month, not only in New York and California, but all across America. And this is happening across the water too in other countries. So now that people can afford to rent from these big corporations, they knew that would happen. They were just making as much money as they could. People can't afford the rent with inflation, all the stuff that's happening, right? And unemployment. So now those houses and apartments will be dumped onto the market. So those of you that will have money through NESARA and GESARA, you will be able to buy up real estate once those houses and those properties are dumped onto the market, and keeping in mind that Evergrande will dump all of those of their assets onto the market. So that's one way you can get into real estate. Also keep in mind that we're moving to the gold standard. When you move to the gold standard, I provided proof of that many, many times. Over 45 states in America have repealed the state sales taxes from the sales of precious metals, thus reclaiming silver and gold as money. States are now creating gold backs, which is actually 14 karat gold pressed on a note so that you can use it to buy local goods and services. What else is happening? BRICS now is using gold for trade. The Shanghai Corporation is doing the same. King's World put out an article that said in February of 2023, the whole world is rushing back to using gold as money. The article explicitly states the world is hurtling back to using gold as money. So we see all the proof that we're moving back to the gold standard. When you move back to the gold standard, that means gold will now back the money that's being printed. And you can't print any more money than the gold that you have or resources that you have to support it. All nations have already agreed to do that. But what happens is you have more buying power. The prices will also go down back to pre-1971 prices, which were the prices that we had before we came out the gold standard. So you will have more buying power. This is great news, family. In the meantime, during this depression that we're experiencing, and you're about to see even a greater depression with the stock market collapse, with the housing bubble, with the automobile collapse. And I already showed you an article a couple of months ago where they said the automobile collapse is already happening. People can't afford to pay their car notes. So now cars are being repossessed. But on the other side of that, the automobile places and banks don't have enough workers to repossess cars. So you see a automobile collapse that's happening behind the scenes that people don't even know about. So we're experiencing an automobile collapse. We will experience a housing market collapse. You will see a housing bubble burst. All bubbles must burst. You will see the United States dollar lose value as all of these countries are deciding to stop trading with the dollar. That's good news for us that assets are being devalued, because an economic principle is that you buy the dip. You buy low and you sell high. Again, during the Great Depression, people became wealthy by buying devalued assets. Some people weren't even affected by the Great Depression because some people lived in abject poverty anyway. So they didn't lose a lot during the stock market collapse. But there were a lot of people that did lose things during a collapse of the economic system. Behind the scenes now, though, we have a new system. We have a gold-backed system. We have the BRICS Union, who has already introduced their new system that they said will rival the SWIFT system, which alone, independently, single-handedly can destroy the United States dollar and the fiat debt-based system. So a lot of things are happening, family. You can purchase devalued assets when the houses are dumped onto the market. So I am not a financial advisor. I study economics, but I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you how or what to do. I'm saying pay attention. There are many, many videos on YouTube of real estate professionals talking about houses being dumped onto the market, and they're telling you how prices are coming down. Even in South Florida, I live in Northern Florida, some of the prices are coming down. Some of these real estate experts are giving you insight into what's going on in the housing market. I don't have time to bring up those videos, but I can at a later time, or you can just do the research yourself. So that's one way you can buy devalued assets. We know that we're in a golden era where things are changing, even though the United States Incorporated is losing and is being decimated. And those federal agencies, those 441 so-called federal agencies that call themselves federal agencies, the Bureau of Investigation, FBI, CIA, IRS, CPA, EPA, all those 441 agencies that call themselves federal entities that I've shown you a list of all 441 of them. They all were determined to be treasonous by the Supreme Court of the United States this summer. That is what the overturning of the Chevron doctrine was. The Chevron deference, the Chevron doctrine being overturned by the Supreme Court of the United States actually was monumental. It was huge because they determined that all of these agencies that said that they were federal or attached to our government were not federal, that they were just elite bloodline families, CEOs that had created their own statutes, their own codes, their own way of doing things in order to enslave us by forcing us to abide by their rules. And if we did not, they would put fines and penalties on us or arrest us. And when we would go to court to try to appeal them, then these judges would defer back to the FBI, back to the CIA, back to the HOA, the Housing Owners Association, which said that you can no longer grow your own plants in your own yard. They would defer back to all these corporate entities and say you must obey them because they are the experts in their field. Well, the Supreme Court of the United States said, no more, not on our watch. You have been determined to be unconstitutional and treasonous. And furthermore, they went further, and the Supreme Court of the United States justices said any judge that allowed that to happen have also committed treason. And any judge that knew of a judge that allowed this to happen, they have committed misprision of treason. And we know over here that the penalty of treason is DEATH, or high treason, and having their assets frozen. That's where Executive Order 13818 comes in. So the United States Incorporated, the so-called government, all those government agencies like CPS that was stealing children from people's houses and trading them in trafficking avenues and venues, all of those have been determined as treasonous. They have to be dismantled. So pay attention. You will see CEOs being arrested. You will see the articles come out that said that these agencies are being dismantled because it has to happen. Oh man, my family's. Can you call Dave to see what he wants, son? So all of this is happening, family, as we are ushering in the golden age. All of the old systems are collapsing. All of the prelates that were running the world all over the world, the governments, they are stepping down or being forced to be removed, and having new people that are on board that can help usher in NESARA and GESARA, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, or the global version of that, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. In the meantime, we see President Trump saying the golden age for America starts now. He's also said that we are in the golden age. You see how although everything is collapsing, the old system as we know it, what they say, out of the ashes a phoenix will arise. Now we see a dawning of a new day. You always have darkness before light. You have the nightfall, then you have the midnight, and then you see, the dawning of a new day. Still dark, but the sun rises as you come into the morning, a new day. So we are on the precipice of a new day coming online, or the sun rising. That's why President Trump said we are now in the golden age. We also we talked about that, us being in the new golden age. We showed you the video of him saying the golden age begins now. Yesterday, he said we are in the golden age, meaning we are on the gold standard. We're in a new day, new banking system. This is why we also saw him on December the 12th ring the bells in the opening of the New York Stock Exchange. It was the first time we saw a president ring the bell, the New York Stock Exchange. Before, it was always a celebrity to do that. But the celebrities, many of them have stepped down from or retired from acting, from participating in athletics, because a lot of them had participated in crimes against humanity. A lot of them have been found on the island that was doing bad things to children. A lot of them were friends with Weinstein. A lot of them participate in achrome, drinking of the blood of our children, and child hunting parties. So many of them will have to face the music through military tribunals, be executed or escorted off the planet, however, but they're frozen, their assets will be frozen. So you see all of this happening behind the scenes. Meanwhile, the golden age is coming back online. So President Trump rang the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange on the 12-12-12 portal, the 12th day of the 12th month of December at 9:30. 9 plus 3 equals 12. He rang it 51 times. That makes us think of 6. 5 plus 1 equals 6. 6 equals the human family, or 6 equals family in itself. 666 equals 6 neutrons, 6 protons, 6 electrons, which equals carbon, which equals life, which equals melanin. Everything that has life has carbon. So now we're at the dawning of a new age, new life, the newness of life. Now the humans, or the God beings, us on the planet, will receive wealth benefits. So President Trump rang the bell 51 times. The ringing of the bell symbolizes victory, freedom, change, prosperity. He rang the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange. These are all rituals, family, to let us know that this is a new golden age, and I'm here to tell you how you can take advantage of it. So we saw that happen. We saw Iraq celebrate the end of ISIS or ISIL, the terroristic group that had taken over parts of Iraq and caused, a lot of problems. So now, since 2017, the Iraqi people will celebrate on December the 11th. So we saw that happening not only in Iraq, but in America too, because we have a population of Iraqi American citizens or Iraqi American people that live in places like Detroit, Chicago, and some of the major cities. And that's why Al Sudani, the president of Iraq, when he came to America last year to visit, earlier this year to visit Biden, he also went to Detroit to tell his Iraqi people that there's a change going on, that the relationships between Iraq and America have been strengthened, that the payment systems are now online, that the dinar will revalue, and that their country will do well. And so the Iraqi people will be able to either go back home or they'll be able to invest in America if they decide to stay here. That's why Al Sudani went to Detroit. But he also went to talk to Joe Biden to strengthen the relationship between Iraq and America. That's important for those of you who are invested in the Iraqi dinar. So we saw Trump says we've entered a new golden age. We've seen him ring the bells of freedom or victory bells at the opening of the New York Stock Exchange during the 12-12-12 portal on December the 12th at 9:30 a.m. We see the Iraqi people celebrating. And one thing that we've been talking about lately is we've also seen and heard the Pope talk about opening the portals or Jubilee doors. So many of you may not have heard this, but I've been reporting this about how the Pope will open 5 Jubilee doors. They're calling it Jubilee doors or Jubilee portals for a reason, because these are traditions. These are, rituals to let us know what's going on behind the scenes. So this is a Catholic tradition that has been celebrated since the 1300s. When the news first came out that the Pope will be opening 5 doors, it came out on X, on Twitter, and people that are independent journalists like me started spreading that information, and it went viral. So mainstream media tried to get ahead of this news, and they tried to debunk it. And you can find articles. Look up Pope will open 5 portals. You'll see all these articles spring up that says that's false and that's not true. Well, they couldn't hold back. They had to tell the truth. This is a ritual that's been going on since the 1300s. So it is a Catholic tradition of celebrating the Jubilee. What is a Jubilee, family? We can look it up right quick. Jubilee definition. It's important that I tell you all this so you can see that we've entered into a new golden age. A Jubilee is a special anniversary of an event, especially one celebrating 25 or 50 years of a reign or activity. In biblical times, there were jubilees that occurred every 50 years, family. There was a jubilee actually that occurred every 7 years. And during that jubilee, you had to forgive people that owed you. You had to forgive the debt every 7 years. You had to let the slaves go free because slaves usually were enslaved or indentured to you in order to pay off a debt that they owed. Every 7 years, you had to let the slaves go free or forgive their debt, and you had to give the land a rest. This happened because when the children of Israel, according to the biblical story, came out of Egypt as slaves, as they were entering into the promised land or into Canaan land, the God of the Bible spoke to Moses and said, I want you to commemorate how I brought you out of slavery. So every 7 years, you need to forgive people of their debts, your slaves or people that are indebted to you. And you are to give the land a rest or a break from planting. Then you are to count a cycle of 7 years, which is a 49th year jubilee, but it's to be celebrated on the 50th year, and that is a platinum jubilee or a great jubilee. We are now in the 50th year biblical jubilee called the platinum jubilee. A lot of people don't know that because they don't celebrate the Hebrew traditions. Well, the Catholics celebrate some of these traditions, right? They know these traditions. I know these traditions because I was raised in the Hebrew tradition, in the Hebrew faith, as being a Hebrew woman. We are in what people call a Jubilee year, a Shemitah time, where you're supposed to forgive debts. You're supposed to let the slaves go free. So this is why Pope has announced that he is opening 5 Jubilee doors. It's a Catholic tradition that's been going on since the 1300s. So all those mainstream reporters that said it was a lie. You can prove that they're lying by studying the Catholic tradition and the Hebrew tradition of doing this every 7 years and every 7 cycles, being on the 49th year to be celebrated on the 50th year. It's a fact. But the Catholics celebrated this tradition historically every 100 years, but now they celebrate it every 25 years. The Hebrew people do so every 50 years. So we have 2 Jubilee seasons. We Hebrew people every 7 years and the celebration every 50 years. We're in that celebration cycle now. And it happens to be right around the same time that the Catholics are talking about their Jubilee celebration. Having Pope Francis to open 7 portals is important, because even though people are saying, but he's nefarious, he's been doing bad things, keep in mind that a lot of these actors now that are posing as presidents, popes, leaders, a lot of them are doubles, a lot of them are wearing masks. And even if it is the original, a lot of them are being controlled by the white hats of the military. Remember motu proprio when Pope came out in 2014 and 2015, Pope Francis, and he wrote a letter to Obama. That letter was discovered, and it was actually given to we the people. I know because the Grand Sheik of the Moors actually taught many of us this. So motu proprio was a letter written by Pope Francis that said the United States Incorporated is not a governmental entity, is not the republic. The president of the United States Incorporated is not a republic. He is the president of the corporation. The Pope said in that letter, we all must cease and desist because we have been doing things that are illegal and unlawful. He was forced to do that in 2014, 2015. So they will do certain things of their own volition, the nefarious bad things, and then they will do things that they have to do because now they're under control. He even said in that letter that we call motu proprio in 2014 and 2015, not only must we cease and desist all corporate entities, all federal entities. That's why the Supreme Court just overturned the Chevron doctrine and ruled that all of these federal agencies must be debunked, must be dismantled. He said all of the federal agencies must cease and desist. All courts, all lawyers, all judges, all of us, everything attached to the United States Incorporated, we all must cease and desist and step down. And if we do not, General Ham will be over something called the Grand Army of the Republic. And this Grand Army of the Republic, a military force, will now take control and force us to step down and liberate the people. He went on in that letter to talk about how they had enslaved so-called African Americans during the Civil War, I think he said, or after the Civil War. I think around the Civil War times, we enslaved African Americans in order to pay off our debts. And then, according to his letter, we then went further by enslaving all the people. I'll have to come back on and show you that. I've read it many times, motu proprio. Pope Francis did that then because he was being used and forced by the white hats of the military, the Grand Army of the Republic, the military alliance, the worldwide alliance of benevolent entities that are now in control to do so then. And now he's being forced to say, hey, I have to open doors of Jubilee now, and I will open 5. So the first one was on December the 24th, which was Christmas Eve. He opened a series. They said he would start to open, this article say, a series of 5 open doors throughout the Vatican, including St. Peter's Basilica, plus Rome's 3 other basilicas to commence next year's Catholic Church Jubilee. This is a joyful commemoration of faith, they said, and of being liberated. Okay, that's what the articles suggest and state, or they assert. And I've shown you the articles, but I'll put them in the description section of my Rumble channel on the Dr. Kia Pruitt Show and on Dr. Kia Pruitt Official on my YouTube channel. There's also, so that's the first one was on December the 24th. The second portal or door of Jubilee that will be open on December, or was open on December 26th. And that was, the article states that Pope Francis will open a symbolic door inside the Roman prison Rebibbia on December the 26th, which is the feast of St. Stephen. Why did he open a door of prison? Because the captives have been set free. We prisoners, the people on the planet that were enslaved through our birth certificate bond, through the banking system and all these rules and regulations by these fake federal agencies and corporate entities, governmental agencies, we have been set free. This is a tradition. This is a symbolism that's happening. And then on New Year's Day, you will have what's called a day of obligation, the solemnity of Mary. The Pope will open the holy door at the Papal Basilica of St. Mary Major outside the Vatican. Thank you so much for sending me a Cash App. Somebody asked, what is the Cash App? It is $ Mama Kia 13, $ MAMAKIA 13. Thank you so much. So that will happen on, where are we now? The third one is, oh, I'm sorry, I lost my place. The third one will be on, or was on December the 29th, when he opened the holy door at Rome Basilica, which is the St. John's Cathedral. On the fourth day, on New Year's Day, a holy day of obligation, the solemnity of Mary, he will open the holy door at the Papal Basilica of St. Mary outside the Vatican in Rome. And then finally, on Sunday, January the 5th, Pope Francis will open the fifth and final holy door at the Papal Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls in Rome. And the article goes on to talk about how these are Jubilee doors. So family, we are on the precipice of change. We have entered a new golden era where we will experience a complete and total debt Jubilee. Many people have already reported that their student loans are miraculously disappearing. Some people have saying their housing mortgages have disappeared. And some of you are part of groups where people have actually come into those groups and shown you proof and evidence of that. We talk about Guyana in South America, how their president, there are articles out there, has said that he will give every national $100,000 a grant, one-time grant. This is to start or kick off NESARA and GESARA. So all of this is happening, family, just to let you know that we've entered a new era. You can take advantage of that, again, by knowing that the markets are going to crash. So anything that crashes is indicative of a new system coming online. Now, some of the stocks exchanges will go away and then some will remain. And so you'll have to do your own research to determine which stocks you should buy when you have a stock market collapse. When you have a housing market collapse, though, with Evergrande dumping all this real estate back onto the market, and BlackRock, Blackstone, and these big entities that now through the bubble burst, people not being able to afford rents or afford their properties, these houses being dropped onto the market, will be a buying opportunity for you to get real estate. Additionally, family, with countries now revaluing their currency by repatriating their gold from the Vatican. I've shown you articles about that. You already know that. Most of these countries, many of these countries, if not all of them by now, have repatriated their gold and their artifacts from the Vatican. They have also established mining contracts with their allied nations to help mine gold in these nations in order to support their currencies so that they can back up their currencies. So what we're experiencing and what we're witnessing is a global currency reset where countries' currencies will be reinstated back to their normal value based on the resources that these countries have. The resources that were stolen by the Vatican have been returned. This is why the Iraqi president al-Sudani said in November 2022, I'm working with other countries to return my stolen money, meaning his wealth, his gold. Okay, and I'm working with the Central Bank of Iraq to revalue the Iraqi dinar against the United States dollar. Then you had nations join BRICS, and you had them stating that we're using our own country's currencies for trade. How are they able to use their own country's currencies? Because they're backing their country's currencies with precious metals and rare earth minerals. As a matter of fact, America has lots of unreported gold that's in the Grand Canyon, that's running along the Colorado River, that's in many of the pyramids that are all over this country. We have discovered rare earth minerals. As a matter of fact, I reported to you earlier this year that in Wyoming alone, they're not telling you about any other places, we discovered 2.34 metric tons of rare earth minerals. All of those resources, all of those minerals, those metals, that will support our economy, our nation. That will ensure that we have wealth. That will support the new currency that we will have that's already in the banks. family, that will replace the United States dollar and the debt-based fiat system. So while we're experiencing this global currency reset, this is a good time to look at and think about investing in countries' currencies that have been devalued through war and or sanctions. This is a good time to invest in those devalued assets. This is how people during the Depression and other depressions become wealthy. They buy up devalued assets. Family, by the time the Iraqi dinar trades on the Forex, a lot of people are going to try to go and get into the Iraqi dinar, but the prices of the dinar could go way, way up in value and become unattainable for a lot of people. And those who can buy it up, they're going to buy it up at what, a whole bunch of money, whereas you can get in the Iraqi dinar now while those assets are still considered devalued before it becomes public by trading on the Forex. Before it becomes public that Iraq has revalued their country's currency. There are many, many articles that suggest, and many, many people reporting from Iraq that are suggesting that the Iraqi dinar has already revalued in country. And if that is true, then people will, in country, they will exchange their old notes for new ones. But for us, that has nothing to do with us. Outside of Iraq, we will exchange the Iraqi dinar to the dollar or the new dollar, and we will do so based on the new rates. So I'm telling you this, and I've gone through this whole long dissertation about how the United States dollar became the world reserve currency by making trade agreements with Saudi Arabia to protect their Saudi kingdom in exchange for their oil, and then force all exporting nations to get oil from Saudi Arabia and using the dollar. I told you that because if those nations didn't do that, we would devalue those nations' currencies by putting sanctions on those countries or by having war over there. And we would lose out, we the people, because our sons and daughters would die in those wars, and our uncles and people, our family members. But the United States Incorporated would fund both sides of those wars, decimate their economy, destroy their dollar or their currency, devalue it through war and sanctions, then go back into the country, rebuild the infrastructure, the GDP would go up, their currency would revalue or be reinstated to the value it was before war, and the people who knew about all this would buy up those countries' currencies once they had been devalued through sanction and war, wait for after the war when the infrastructure was rebuilt and the new rate would be put on those currencies, then go to the bank with a new exchange rate attached to those currencies and become millionaires and billionaires overnight. Think about what the currencies are that have been devalued through war or sanctions. Iraqi dinar, Venezuelan bolivar, Zimbabwean zim, which are actually bonds, Afghanistan currency, the Afghani. What else? Vietnamese dong, Indonesian rupiah, the Indian rupee. Think about all these countries' currencies that have been devalued, and then you can use this as an opportunity to become wealthy during this greatest wealth transference in history in the new golden age. You can do it by buying a real estate as these properties come online and be dumped back onto the market, and the values will go down because every bubble must burst, and we will no longer have credit in the new system because credit is against our republic. Doing credit through the banking system, you can really become wealthy. So if you have a savings now, or if you have a little bit, or you're going to have wealth, you'll be able to buy up real estate. Pay attention to the markets because mainstream media is not going to tell you this information. Pay attention to the country's currencies that devalue, because this is an opportunity for you to become wealthy if you buy Iraqi dinar, all those currencies that I announced. So you can even get agro checks for just a couple dollars, Zimbabwean agro checks for a couple dollars. Put in a chat, family, where people can get countries' currencies that have been devalued through war or sanctions. Let them know where they can get them and which countries they should get. Read the chat, family. Come back on the videos and read the comment section, because our soul family will help you through this process. So another way that you can become wealthy during this greatest wealth transfer in history, once the dollar has been decimated and it has been brought online, that we're in the golden age and we're on the gold standard, or you can start doing so now, is through digital coins or digital assets such as XRP, XLM, XDC, and some of the other assets. Now, I don't know about Bitcoin, because people have said that Bitcoin is a nefarious coin that the elite use to trade for children. I don't know about that. And then some people said once the Three Gorges Dam is completely destroyed, then Bitcoin will also collapse. So I don't know much about that one. And I'm not an expert in digital coins or digital assets, but I will tell you at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Mel Carmine, who is the creator of XRP Team 1 or XRP Team and he has he has a podcast on YouTube and Rumble. He has been talking about XRP and how these coins will explode. And he'll talk about what it is, how you can invest in it, how you can protect those assets, and why those are important as we are in a new golden age where gold and silver will back all of these resources, allegedly. I'm saying allegedly because, I can't prove it or I haven't proved it, but he will. He's the expert. So if you are interested in learning about or investing in these digital assets, join me on the Dr. Kia Pruitt Show at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, and you can talk to someone who knows about this. Now, this is something that you all have asked me to do. Bring an expert on, bring somebody on to talk to us about these assets, since I'm not really an expert in those assets. I am a gold and silver person. I talk about gold and silver. Now, I'm not one that has a lot of money, so I don't have enough money to invest in gold. I don't have a big savings, but I know about gold and silver. And I can tell you that the prices have been suppressed because the regulators and people that were in power didn't want you to know that gold and silver were lawful money, that they are a hedge against inflation, that they go up or increase in value as the dollar decreases in value. Basic economic principle: as the dollar decreases in value, gold and silver raise in value, because gold and silver are lawful money all over the planet. They are recognized as lawful money. So right now, the prices of gold and silver are going down, which is a buying opportunity. Silver is less than $30, less than $29, about 29 something. Gold is about $2,600, which is an increase from what it was in former years. So they had gone up and reached all-time highs, but they're being suppressed right now before we completely bring on the golden era online. I'm telling you, Trump has already said the golden era is now. He's letting you know. He rang the bell of freedom. The New York Stock Exchange is about to change. The whole global system, global markets are changing. This is a buying opportunity, family. This is the time for you to get into silver and gold while the prices are still low, because once it is known worldwide that the whole world has decided to use gold and silver as money, the gold and silver will go up in value. And many economists have suggested that in order to pay off the debts here in America alone, you must revalue gold between $10,000 per ounce and $100,000 per ounce, where gold is only $2,600 and some change right now. Look it up at goldprice.org. and silverprice.org. You can see the gold and silver price. But if you want me to do that right now, let's go see. Goldprice.org. Gold is $2,600.03. I'll show you guys over here. Which currencies do minerals should you invest in? Family, please answer the question because I'm late for my meeting. So here's the chart. Gold is $2,603.24. It's down now by $18.94. Silver has gone down even more. It's now $28.91, but it had gone up as high as $35 in just this year. So it's down now at $28.91. Imagine if we all bought 1 or 2 ounces of silver or many ounces of silver. Now we will be setting up our families to become wealthy because silver and gold will go up in value. In fact, silver will outperform gold. Silver actually is used for industrial purposes. It is used in solar panels, electric cars, computers, cell phones, refrigerators, all of the appliances, microwave oven, stove, washer and dryer, catalytic converter, silver and palladium and platinum. So silver is severely undervalued, but it will go up in value. Imagine all of these new technologies that have been, or even the old ones that have been suppressed, that will come online now that we're in a golden age. The med beds, the other technologies with the freedom cities that are coming online, and the flying cars and the fast railroads now that will allow you to get from one country to another within minutes. Imagine all the silver that's about to be used. Imagine all the silver mines that are in Mexico. Mexico, you're about to become a very wealthy nation because all those mines have been closed, but now they're going to be reopened. Now that everybody is using silver and gold for trade, and in America, we've repealed the state sales taxes to reclaim silver and gold as money. All of this has been done through legislation because the republic is back online. That's how you know it's happening, because now we're taking our power back. Many states have ruled against central bank digital currencies that was attached to the old system, and the United States incorporated and said they're unconstitutional, CBDCs. States are saying, no, we won't use them. They're rejecting money from the United States Department of Education. They're rejecting all type of money from the federal government because the federal government will go away now that the Supreme Court has ruled against the Chevron doctrine. Again, those federal agencies are not federal. They're not attached to our republic. They have been determined as unconstitutional and treasonous. So family, if you can get into gold and silver, go to your local coin shop, look up coin shop near me or numismatics near me. You can take your savings or any fiat dollars that you have, roll it over to something that's going to maintain its value. Or you can even get a gold IRA. For many of you that don't know how to do it, go to your local coin company and do it. Or you can look for online, look for an online company, or you can use the persons that I've always used, Miles Franklin, by calling 952-929-7006, or send an email to info@milesfranklin.com and let them know you learned about it through the Dr. Kia Pruitt show or Dr. Kia Pruitt sent you. However, you will get the best prices in the industry. But I'm telling you that you don't have to go through my contact. Just get in on this wealth transfer so that once it's announced that everything has changed and people start rushing into the markets to do it, you're already there. You're already set up. So even if gold is out of your budget, it's out of my budget. I'm going to keep it real. I'm a substitute teacher. Okay. I used to work in higher education. My husband got sick. I got sick first. I left and I had to go on, what do you call it? Social Security. When I got sick, disability, all praises be to God. I'm better now. But then my husband got sick and I took care of him and we nursed him back to health. So I wasn't out working. When I did work, again, I used to work in higher education as a director of programs and as a counselor, an academic counselor. But I left in 2008. And so the way I would supplement my income was by becoming a substitute school teacher. So I don't make a lot of money. I have a doctor, but I don't make a lot of money. I didn't join the Black Greek sororities, so I couldn't get those contacts, or I wasn't able to get promoted into certain places because, you know, if you're a part of secret societies, your sorority sister's going to take care of their people first. And just by circumstance and life happening, I was unable to I was unable to work. Sorry, you can hear that. Because of life circumstances, I wasn't able to work, or I was on Social Security disability, and then I became a substitute school teacher. So gold just wasn't in my budget. But instead of saying I can't afford it, thank you for the Cash App, I asked myself, how can I? Family, instead of saying what you can't do or what is not possible to do, ask yourself, how can you? So what I did is said, I have a little money. I can at least afford a couple ounces of silver. Thank you so much for the Cash App, family. Right? It was, when I got into it, was only $14 an ounce. But if you are interested in gold, there is even a way to get into the wealth transfer by getting into gold. Family, recently Florida announced that they will be releasing their new gold backs. And I've been talking about gold backs since 2020. Gold backs are also called gold Aurum notes. What are gold Aurum notes? Gold Aurum notes are 14 karat gold. It's 14 karat gold that's pressed onto a note. Those notes or gold backs or gold Aurum notes are actually a percentage of ounces of gold pressed onto the note, where you can buy local goods and services with this legal tender. Florida announced that they were going to do a study on it a month ago. And I said, when they say they're announcing they're going to do a study on whether or not they should use gold backs, that means they're going to do so. I kid you not. I reported that. And the next few days, they announced that we have released new gold backs that will become available on January the 15th. But there were already states that had gold backs or gold RM notes. And again, I have been reporting that since 2017, no, 2020. So when people say, I can't afford gold, I say, yes, you can figure out a way. Instead of saying, I can't, ask yourself, how can I? And in many states that had already had gold RM notes or gold backs, where you can use gold and silver backs to purchase local goods and services, and it was completely lawful and legal in the state of Wyoming, in the state of Utah, in the state of, I want to say Kansas. There were many, many states. I'll bring those 13 states up in a minute. But if you desire to get into gold at a fraction of the price, then look up places like Money Metals, AppMax, Miles Franklin, JM Bullion, SD Bullion, or just go online and look up gold backs or gold RM notes, AURUM, and you can see here, like, for example, I'm brought up on my screen, you can buy a bundle of gold backs. It's a mixed bundle of gold backs, which is 14 karat gold pressed onto a note for $27. $27.62. When I first bought gold RM notes in 2020, I bought it for $6. Real 14 karat gold pressed onto a note, but people didn't know about it, so it was low. That's what I'm saying. Buy devalued assets while you can, while things are being depressed, before the whole world comes to know it, and before, you know, everybody gets into it. Now, if all of this is out of your budget, don't worry. Things will go up in value, but then things have a way of balancing themselves out and correcting. Markets will correct so that, you know, everybody's going to be okay. Plus, you have NESARA and GESARA that will put money into everybody's global accounts or quantum accounts. Then you also will have us being on the gold standard, which will strengthen the dollar, so you'll be able to buy more with the dollar than you had been in the past. And we're going to go back to pre-1971 prices. So then your dollar will go a long way. So everybody's going to be okay. I'm just telling you how you can take advantage of the greatest wealth transfer right now while value assets have been devalued, and you can become extremely wealthy just like people did during the Great Depression. If it's not in your budget, it's okay. You're going to be all right. This is for people who are interested. So I brought up something from moneymetals.com where you can get one gold back mixed bundle, which it tells you it's 1/1000th of a troy ounce of 0.9999 gold back bills, one per state. They have Idaho, Utah. My family's trying to call me. Sorry about that. They have Idaho, Utah, South Dakota, New Hampshire, and Nevada. And these gold backs had been out for a long time. When I reported this in 2020, there were 13 states that had legalized using silver and gold as legal tender. And in those states, you were able to buy local goods and services with gold backs. A lot of people just didn't know it. But I told people about it, especially when I saw people saying, I can't. I was like, no, you have to look at how can I? So let's see, what are those 13 states that were using gold and silver as money? This was even before 2020. Let me see if I can find 13 states where gold and silver had become legal tender. These were the 13 states that were doing it. Hold on. Just so you can know I'm not telling. I'll put this in the description section. Louisiana, Utah, Texas. Thank you for the cash app. Theola, I love you, sister. Thank you so much. God bless you, sister. I appreciate you having a smile on you. May the Creator bless all of you with wealth and prosperity and peace. It is Louisiana, Utah. Can you guys see this on my Rumble YouTube? No, you can't see it. Hold on. Let's read those 13 states that had already legalized using silver and gold as legal tender that people didn't know about. And I'm telling you now, because when I bought gold backs, they were $6. Now it's 27 and more, even higher. And those of you that want to get Florida's new gold backs, you have to go to metalsmint.com and get on their waiting list. So West Virginia, Louisiana, Utah, Texas, Wyoming, Arizona, Kansas, Oklahoma, Indiana, Missouri, Tennessee, South Carolina, and I'm missing one. So there were 13 states already where you could use silver and gold as legal tender. The article says several states are beginning to accept gold and silver as cash. Click for a list of state-by-state regulations and local coin shops. This article came out, look at this, family, July 25th, 2019. So those of you that are on Instagram that can't see it, go to type in 13 states that use silver and gold as money. Several states are beginning to accept gold and silver as cash. An encouraging victory for sound money has just taken place in West Virginia, where they have now announced plans to remove taxation on precious metals as of July 1st, 2019. Again, when you remove the prices from the sales tax from precious metals, you are acknowledging precious metals as money. And that's in accordance with Article 1, Section 10 of our Constitution, that says the only thing that can be used to pay debts is silver and gold. And it's in accordance with the Constitution that says that the dollar is defined as a fixed weight in silver. Then you have many legislatures to introduce the Gold Standard Restoration Act to define the dollar as a fixed weight in gold. Beginning in 2018 with Alexander Mooney, and then in that was House Resolution 5404. Then in 2021 and 2022, House Resolution 9157, also known as the Gold Standard Restoration Act. And then in 2023, Alexander Mooney joined Andy Briggs and Paul Gosar to introduce the Gold Standard Restoration Act by bill or House Resolution 2435. So now that they're defining the dollar as a fixed weight in gold, as well as the dollar as being defined as fixed weight in silver, to be in alignment with the Constitution. So according to Encouraging Victory, West Virginia announced removing taxation from precious metals as of July 1st, not 2019. Louisiana, Utah. Thank you for the Cash App blessing. Okay, the family's calling me. Let's see. Joining 7 other states that have either passed or introduced legislation in favor of the metals, Louisiana, Utah, and Texas are now taking further steps towards establishing regulatory depositories to hold gold and silver. And it goes on to talk about how each state, West Virginia, Wyoming, Utah, Arizona, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Indiana, Missouri, Louisiana, Tennessee, South Carolina, followed suit by repealing the state sale taxes from the sales of precious metals. So I talked about that article in 2020 when I did a podcast with, for those of you who know Dr. Ray Hagans, I did a podcast with him. And then years after, as each state joined in repealing the state sales taxes, I told people we're moving towards the gold standard. I can see it. You know, each state is joining in this whole revolution. This revolution will be televised. But I saw the signs of this in 2014 when I lived in Ghana. Ghana is called the Gold Coast. And I actually saw Europeans mine gold there. I saw Chinese mining gold. I saw a lot of illegal mining going on. And I stumbled upon a book called Africa is China's Newest Continent, because China was mining so much gold there. That's how they were making their country wealthy. Okay. I said then in 2014, something is happening. There's a reason why all these people are here mining gold. So I've said all of this, family, to say that you can all get in on the greatest wealth transfer in history. And the way you can do that is by buying devalued assets now while you can. So thank you so much for entertaining me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my podcast. Thank you so much for your energy, your time, your prayers, your support, your encouragement, even the comments that I haven't had time to go through because I'm late for a meeting. Thank you also for, okay, I'm getting all this time. Thank you also for the Cash App. And for those of you who asked, my Cash App is $ Mama Kia 13. That's MAMAKIA 13. So family, those of you that are Instagram joining me, I have to say goodbye because they'll cut me off if I don't. I love you so much. You can go to my Rumble channel at Dr. Kia Pruitt on rumble.com, or you can go to my YouTube channel to see this video at Dr. Kia Pruitt Official. My daughter-in-law said she'll call me later. At Dr. Kia Pruitt Official, in order to get more information, read the comment section and look at anything that's put in the chat, because people are telling you what currencies to get into and how to invest in some of these different assets that we spoke of. Also, join me at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Mel Carmine from the XRP QFS team. He will also have his summit his Quantum Summit this summer. I think it's in July. It's in July, June or July. I believe it's in July. But he'll come to talk to us today at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our podcast about all these digital assets, how to get into them, and how to protect them. And you want to do it now while the assets are considered devalued or low in price. Bye for now, Instagram family. So the rest of you, I just want to say thank you again. We'll come on at 2:00. I have an appointment to get to before I come back at 2:00. I thank you so much for even asking me to bring somebody on to talk about digital assets, because I put a little money in digital assets. I don't have a lot of money, or I didn't have, but now we're all going to be wealthy. But I just put a little in there as I was learning about it because I didn't want to miss out. And I was like, if I just put what I can afford into digital assets, into silver, into gold backs, or whatever I can afford, then I'm not completely missing out. And if it never happens, which I know it will, then what? I just missed out on a little money that I probably would have spent on something else. Anyway, let's see. I want to say thank you so much for the Cash App blessings. I just want to say, shout you out before this goes away. My computer is saying it's time to go. Sister Theola, thank you so much for the Cash App blessing. God bless you. Have a smile on you. Brother Stephen, I appreciate you. Thank you. Sister Renee Williams, thank you. Carlotta Tabay, thank you. Colleen Noveltree, thank you so much for the Cash App. Norma Salazar, thank you so much. Sister Phyllis, God bless you. Mac, Chief Mac, thank you. Sister Victoria Hamilton, Sister Della N. Smith, Brother Tristan Early, I love you. Sister Asdisa, thank you. Sister Barbara Pittman, thank you. Bobby Stevenson, thank you so much. Chief Mac, thank you for the Cash App blessing. Sister Tawana, Sister Gloria Jackson, Malika Brown, and Joseph Evans, Sister Joyce Duckett, and Theola again. Theola, lesson B. Thank you so much for the Cash App blessing, family. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope I've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. Go out and make this a great day. Bye for now, family. See you at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Dr. Kia Pruitt Show, so we can learn how to invest in devalue assets such as digital coins, such as XRP, XLM, and XDC, and others. Bye-bye.